Greetings everyone, welcome back, and we're here again with Khepra Anu.
Yes.
Right, it's been about a year since we last spoke. Well, actually we've spoken many times since that, but it's been about a year since we last spoke to these people, right, on YouTube and wherever you may be watching this. So welcome again, welcome to these Fireside chats, and this time we'll talk a little more about raw food, about health, about nutrition, just about leading a good life, right, in whatever sense we can come up with. So we'll share some experience, tell you some stories, and hopefully have a good discussion. So, you know, as I was telling you before we recorded, recently I made a video on my channel, which is RawDeal on YouTube, where you're probably watching this. I also have a Russian version of the channel, where the videos are mostly in Russian, right? And there I made a video about such controversial topic as raw food and libido, right? And I called it, "Where did the libido go?" And the topic was so controversial, I had a huge burst of activity, a lot of comments, you know, some people agreeing with me, a lot of people calling me crazy and telling me, you know, I lost my manhood and whatever other things, right? And obviously the topic is controversial because a lot of people notice that when they switch to raw food, they tend to lose that what may be called or dubbed or termed in society sexual drive, right? The so-called libido, and it kind of goes away, right? And the person is left wondering, is something wrong with me? Or at least what is happening, right? Maybe if they're not panicking, which many people are, right? If they're not panicking, they're at least wondering, why is this, right? Because how could it be I'm able to heal all these painful things and wrongs with my body? We'll talk about that in a bit, because a lot of things, for instance, happened to me and with me, with my body since we last did this interview. But how could this be, right? I have no sexual drive, but at the same time, my body is healing in all these other ways. Like, is this not a contradiction, right? So now we'll try to resolve this, and this is my question to you.
Okay.
Like, what's your vision? What is happening there?
A couple things are happening. Let's look at it from a life cycle perspective. And so I'm gonna really try to build it up and then break it down. Okay. So from a life cycle perspective, we probably live, you know, I mean, we have our thoughts about life expectancy. You know, it could be, is it 80 years? Is it 100 years? Is it 120 years? The thing is that when you look at
By the way, just to clarify, this is not what nature expects us to live. That's what we happen to live on average nowadays in the condition that we're in right now, right?
But if we looked at it from more of a natural perspective, and if we're in sync with the natural cycle and we're eating our naturally God-given diet, then it's like, okay, because the thing is like what we're talking about is a life-creating activity. See, you know, we can look at sex, but sex is just part of the life cycle. Okay, so if we look at that, and especially we start looking at it from the so let's say, for example, let's say our life expectancy should be 120 years. So the question is, if we did some simple math and said, well, if our life cycle is 120 years, then how many more times when we fully mature should we live? So if we say, okay, we should live 7 times past our mature age. 7 times, if we mature at 20, let's say take 20, nice round number.
Yes.
7 times 20, we know that's 140.
Yes.
Okay. Is it 5 times? You know, if 20 times 5 is 100. Wow, we should live 5 times past maturity. Should we live 7? We're living 4 times past maturity.
Right. Which, this is actually an interesting math. I've never thought of this way before, but like I'm following on right now. So if you take a dog, because I have some experience with dogs, a dog about a year. At year old, it's already pretty full-bodied. Maybe another like a year and 4 months, it'll be a fully grown big
so
dog,
let's just
right?
say a year.
And like a year,
Right.
and so a
how
dog.
long does that dog live?
Well, you know, on a decent diet, if you don't give it a lot of the dry food garbage from the supermarket, I mean, say 14 years, right? I mean, 12, 14 years.
Right. But even
Right.
12.
So what we're saying, I caught on. You know, we did not talk about this before.
Yeah.
So Khepra is saying the multiplier that we have for ourselves is very low. It's
low.
shamefully low,
It's
right?
low.
But go on. So how do we?
Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that stored in our mind as we look. Now we start looking at the female. Because the female, at what age does she start to produce eggs that can be fertilized? Basically her menstrual cycle, her moon cycle.
Right.
Okay.
Which is what, about 14, 15, I guess?
Well,
it's been getting younger, which is
younger.
It's a problem in itself, right?
So what does that tell you? The younger it gets, that basically is telling me when a young woman, a young girl turning to a woman, if she's getting her cycle at 11 or even 10 or even 9, that's a problem. That's an alarm versus 15, 16, maybe even 17.
Right.
Because now what you're seeing is that the body is outpacing the mind.
Right.
Okay, and therefore life is actually in a rush. You see what I'm saying? So now if we take that idea and say,
you mean in a rush to procreate?
Right, because the life cycle has now been shortened.
Right. Yes.
Because the life cycle has now been shortened to maybe 50, 60, 70, 80 years, that procreation time has got to happen sooner.
Right.
Okay, so now versus like probably once upon a time ago, women probably didn't start having, weren't able to procreate maybe till 15, 16, maybe till 20.
Right. Well, people used to marry, you know, really young, right? At least women. And, you know, we're not advocating that, nor are we saying that it's a bad idea. We're just stating that as a fact, right? So I take it the only reason they did that is because they were able to do it at around that age, right? Or maybe, because that's, you know, 15, 16, that was pretty common to marry people at that age, right? Even 200 years ago.
Right. But so when we look at that, now let's tie all of this back to the sex drive.
Right.
Because again, this thing is all, because really, you know, the human spirit wants to live on forever. So that's what really gives us, that's part of what gives us our drive to connect with the, you know, I mean, you know, bearing if, you know, your preference is the opposite sex, that desire, that drive, that urge to connect with the opposite sex is that desire to reproduce yourself. Okay?
Right.
So now now imagine we're on a high meat, high animal protein, acidic diet.
Which at least I was. I mean, I don't know what you were doing before you became vegetarian, but I mean, I've gone through all circles of Dante's hell, so to speak.
That can overstimulate the sex drive.
Right.
The key word is overstimulate.
Yes.
Where now you're even when you sleep, you have emissions.
Right. The wet dreams and
right.
Yes.
That's not a healthy thing. That lets you know, even when your body is supposed to be healing and resting and regenerating itself, you're having an emission.
Right.
Because again, your body is now because your body is on a fast track of health in terms of your life cycle, your body is trying to procreate as soon as it can, because you are not going to live a long life.
Right.
See, this is a marathon.
And it knows it. It feels it.
Right. When you're eating more of a marathon type diet, which is more of a raw food, plant-based diet, yes, you're not going to have that urge or that same desire to procreate, at least on that same level as you did when you were on a more of a meat and starch diet.
Right. And here I want to add something. So, and this is, at this level, it's pure speculation, but I would actually not be surprised if this is true at all. If you notice what happened, I mean, obviously this could be connected back to, the rise of feminism and, kind of a lot of the brainwashing that, this basket of goodies women were sold, right? But I'm pretty sure there's a strong correlation between the rise in the quantity of these synthetic foods and the number of divorces even, right? So what I'm saying is people are out of whack even relationally, right? So the drive is so strong that you need to connect with another person, like you said, right? If I take your point of view, so I'm just jumping in there. So if my drive is so strong that I need to connect to another person, so I need to find someone, right? Hence the rise of things like the pickup movement,
because
and
you're dying,
right? Because
but you're still in you're still in the relatively early part of your life cycle. Okay.
In astronomical or just natural
right.
terms,
like let's say you're 20 or 30 years old, right? You've just fully matured at 20, and so yes, even though you're dying, you're still you're. It's almost like you can get away with that because you've just completed the first part of your life cycle.
Right. Yes.
Okay, but you should really live 7, 8, 10.
14, like
if we
the
go
dog.
by right, a dog, 14.
Yes.
Easy.
Yes.
But we don't.
Right, and as you mentioned a great thing actually, and that's what I talk about this all the time, at least behind the scenes, not always in the video, but it's this, I'm trying to find a good term for it, but basically, making adults in the mind seem to be more like children. So what's happening, the two things actually went in the opposite directions. The body went towards maturing faster and getting out of whack
the
hormonally.
whole life cycle has been sped up.
Right, but mentally people are being kept as immature children, right, longer. So that's why perhaps there is low level of consciousness. People can make relationships work. They get married on a whim, like a year later or whatever, 5 years later there is a divorce and there is always a problem, and so that's what I really meant when I had this idea. Maybe the two things are connected, which they always are connected.
That it goes deep. It goes deep into every part of our life. But what? The other thing that's interesting that happens is that now, and men and women. With the men, let's say by 40, by 50, they can't get it up.
Right.
They can't, there's no energy there. They've spent it all. They got prostate cancer. They got all of these issues. The women have all kind of issues because they've been over. There's the bleeding that happens with the menstruation. There's a lot of scarring that happens. So that can lead to tumors and all kinds of issues, reproductive issues. A lot of women and men, we've gotten to a point where even the people that want to reproduce, they can't.
Right, and it's actually...
And that's a whole nother...
this is a huge topic, actually.
Yes.
So I will just mention it in passing because I'll probably make another video, perhaps in English. Maybe it'll be one of my actually first legit videos in English. But I read a book recently called Pottinger's Cats. Have you heard about that?
Oh, I'm very familiar with it.
Right, so roughly, and we'll just give you an idea. There was a guy named Francis Pottinger living in the 20th century. He was a doctor, an American doctor working out of California. And long story short, he was actually working on some human troubles, but he needed a bunch of cats so he could calibrate certain hormonal treatment on cats because, at the time he didn't have a lot of lab instruments, so that was one of the few available ways to do that. So, but he noticed that his cats were dying too quickly, right? He could not do much with them because they kept dying off. And an investigation he launched had to do with why the cats were dying, right? So he noticed an inconsistency. He noticed that the cats that were fed raw milk or raw meat, even scraps from a butchery or something, as long as they were raw, they were doing really, really well. They were phenomenally healthy. They could take his operations. They could live after that, right? They had, this glossy and shiny feel to them, whereas the cats that were eating cooked human diet or even pasteurized milk were dying. And so that started his 10-year experiment on these cats. And if you have not read this book, this book in the raw food community or section of the knowledge of the world, this book has the biggest impact on me, because it not only explained, it showed explanations to things and questions that I wondered about for years. And here was an experiment that was performed in the middle of the 20th century that had it all. It had it all, from the deforming faces or skulls of the cats, where their teeth had problems, the teeth became crooked, right? It had the problems where the jaw would go backward, right? So the lower jaw, I'm not sure of the proper medical term, but it's essentially, if you look in the profile, it's further behind rather than, kind of aligned with the front. So all kinds of problems with the nose, with the sinuses, with the breathing. The bones have very low density.
Also, if I could jump in,
yes.
There were emotional issues.
Yes, such as all kinds of emotional issues. Cats are irritable. Homosexual behavior so cats lost interest to the opposite gender, and they started taking interest in the same gender, applying both to males and females. And then in the third or fourth generation, they stopped procreating altogether. And actually in the fourth, they could not, because they could not. They could not.
And then they also had all of the human, which because naturally a question you could say is like, well, these are cats, these are not humans. However, they had all of the human conditions, or human diabetes, cancer, arthritis, yes. These things that happen to us, that people we know, we love, when we can touch, that are coming down with these everyday, what has become everyday conditions that these cats. So go ahead, continue.
No, but I guess I'm bringing this up because this book had such a huge impact on me that I kept reading it and just putting it down, because almost every chapter or every paragraph, or he has a lot of illustrations, he had a lot of x-rays. So this guy was a scientist. This guy was not some fogey or snake oil salesman, right? He was doing his professional work while he stumbled.
One other interesting thing about that particular study, he varied. He had one group where it was all raw. When we say raw, it was two components to the diet: the milk and the meat.
That's right. Yes.
So if he varied one thing, so you had all raw, you had half raw, and then you had all cooked.
Right.
It didn't matter. It was only the all raw that thrived.
Right.
If it was cooked milk and raw meat, they had issues.
Yes.
Cooked milk or raw meat, they had issues.
Right.
So I found that to be, for me, that was one of probably the most fascinating part of the study.
Yeah, and even adding to that, out of the ones on the raw food that thrived the most were the ones that were essentially taken into this fenced up forest area and were made to just forage for themselves, hunt mice. So they were made to hunt, to work for their food.
Interesting.
When they caught food, they had to chew it. The jaws had to work, the muscles had to work. So everything, the body just came into perfect balance and alignment with the way it was supposed to be, right? And he actually has pictures where he just opens up cat's mouth and shows teeth. Two cats from the same litter. One is what I just described. The other one just, regular diet, cooked food, not a lot of motion. So the first one had perfect teeth. When I say perfect, I mean you could probably measure, with a gauge tool, and you would have like perfect alignment of teeth everywhere. And the other one have teeth like crooked fins. You can tell all kinds of problem. And the front teeth were really worn down at young age, so kind of reminds you of a lot of teeth problems humans have.
Oh yeah.
This, I had teeth problems.
Oh yes.
So
same here.
it's not no one is kind of immune from that, so to speak. So, but we went on this topic while talking about the so-called sex drive, right?
Yes.
So And
So-
I just brought up this book, but we can get back to, so we can finish up there.
So, you know, for me personally, I mean, you know, yes, my libido probably wouldn't be as agitated, if I could use that word.
That's a good word, yeah.
Agitated, you know, to want to have sex every day or even every week. I could probably go, I mean, I sort of, I look at it as the reverse because, you know, food and sex are really, I almost look at them as almost the same thing because, you know, it's like there's a give and take with the with food and sex. So, you know, we obviously eat to nourish ourselves. We eat for enjoyment. We eat for, you know, nutrition and to rebuild ourselves. However, the digestion of food takes away as it is also giving. So sex really works in the same way. You know, yes, sex, you know, a big part of sex is connecting with another human being and to get that element of human touch, and that can be very healing and very passionate, and it definitely brings a lot to life itself. However, the act of sex, in terms of when we look at like the emissions that happen, you know, with the male, you know, when you finish off and you have that ejaculation, that is very devitalizing.
Yes.
You know, to actually release that fluid from us can be very downing and very devitalizing. So again, if we're agitated and overdriven to want to do that all the time, that is just like eating. If we want to eat 3-4 times a day with snacks and we want to consume all of the wrong things, that's going to devitalize us. So
Right.
so the whole thing is to find this natural balance. Just like with food, you know, one thing I preach is that we only really need to eat once a day, one meal a day. We can ingest throughout the day, whether it's water, even fruits, or definitely fruits, or fresh juices, or if you're into tea, that's fine. But if you're going, you know, when we talk about digesting protein, fat, you know, things that are building blocks, you only need to do that once a day.
Yep,
You want to
yep.
give your body at least a good 18 to 20 hours to process that before you're really truly hungry again to repeat that cycle.
Right.
Now the question is like, okay, what is the natural sex cycle? Well, I'm still
Well, for animals
Theori-
out in the wild, it's once a year, right? I mean, because they have this thing called heat, right? And like they have babies once a year, they grow them up, bring them up, and then that's it, right? So I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's once a year for animals.
No, I mean,
right?
and that's food for thought. But I would say, just in terms of you have a partner and that's something, you know, you know, if y'all have a rhythm and it's something that you do, you know, in terms of the, you know, we look at the daily cycle, weekly cycle, monthly cycle.
Right.
I think looking at all of those natural cycles, definitely, I personally feel that daily is too much, number one. So we could either say, well, weekly, that's a natural cycle. So I think once a week is a good cycle. And if you want to go beyond that, you know, even once a, you know, because, you know, the moon makes its cycle, which gives us almost a month, or,
Right.
or a little bit shorter than a month.
So that's the female rhythm, right? That's
And
the
that's
moon.
the female
and
rhythm.
males, for those who don't know, also have their own rhythms.
Right.
So and
because
we
because
do.
because yes, a woman can procreate. Like if we look at rodents, we look at rats. Their cycle, everything is sped up because
Right.
their life cycle is like 2 years.
Right.
But they can, once they are born, they can start to procreate, I think, within months or weeks.
Right.
And they can actually have a litter every month.
Right.
So you are you living more like the rat or the whale who can
Right.
live 200 years? And I'm sure everything slows down.
Right.
Or the turtle, everything slows
Yes.
down.
Yes.
You know, okay,
Yep.
they're not having sex as much. They're not eating as much. Okay, and so that all has an impact on how we feel from day to day.
Right.
Okay, so So it's an interesting. It's very, very interesting to really think about it and to really theorize it, because as humans, we're really, we're the walking gods of the earth. If anything, the whales and the turtles and those long-living animals should be looking to us,
Right.
because again, we have this ability to, we have the higher mind, but we're not in rhythm, we're not in sync with what is truly natural to us.
Right. I just want to say on that, I don't think we're doing it quite well as gods. I mean, at best, at best, I would,
That's a lofty,
right,
word there,
very
yeah.
lofty title for us. At best, I would describe it as like an, imbecilic demigod of some
There
sort,
you
right,
go.
with
Yeah,
a lot of imbecilic
well
tendencies.
said, well said.
So, yeah, probably a demigod who knows that he can be, but he's not quite there, right? So he has all these complexes and issues, and whatever other things. But this is very fascinating. By the way, I don't think you're not advocating to live your life always looking back and saying, oh, what can I do to live longer, right? This is not what Khepra is saying, I think, here. So
No,
you're saying just be aware of this, be conscious. These are real things. So you're in the driver's seat here. The things you do. If you eat a lot, if you abuse your body, it'll speed up your cycle. It's a well-known fact. By now, you can say it's a fact that if you reduce your caloric intake, you will live longer, right? That's why
you lengthen your cycle. I like what
Right.
you said, speeding up your cycle.
It's
Because, yeah,
you have a switch. It's like you go up or down. That's why I was always amazed how. Actually, I don't know if it's just me who notices it, but I always notice it. If you watch an interview with a person who survived Nazi camps, like at age 80, 70, whatever, 85, 90, they always look much younger than their, regular counterparts. So the same I noticed in Russia. During the war, there was a city called Leningrad, which is now St. Petersburg, which was under siege for over 3 years, right? So very little food was getting in, so a lot of people starved to death. But those who survived, I mean, obviously they had such traumatic or at least psychological experience that they had their food habits changed for the rest of their life. So I'm sure some of them went the opposite way, where they ate a lot, but a lot of them continued to eat very little, and they looked amazing. If you watch the interviews, some of them look 20 years younger than they are, right? So it's just. And there were experiments done on rats, and I mean, it's just a fact. So there is definitely truth.
And one of the things is like, if I could say this, because I've been married a few times, I'll just put that out. But my first wife used to call me a monk.
A monk.
Right.
Right.
Because again, yeah, I'll say it. My libido probably was not as frequent. If I could use that word, in terms of our cycles were out of rhythm. Because I'm on this raw food cycle.
And wait, so just to clarify, she was a regular eater, right?
She was not a raw vegan. No.
Right.
No. So but the other thing is too, is that I don't, there's imbalance is imbalance. So,
Between the two people?
Well, no, I'm just saying in terms of, you certainly want to, just like with food. You say, well, if it's healthy, or if I can get benefit from not eating food, then I shouldn't eat. No one is saying that. There's no one that loves food and loves sex more than I do.
Okay.
Okay? It doesn't mean that I want to do those things every day or all the time.
Yes.
In fact, I want to sort of, like with food, I definitely follow the practice of eating once a day. And some days I don't eat. But when I do eat,
once a day,
it is so enjoyable.
Yes.
It is so, and the sex works the same way. If I go, and not days, but even weeks.
Right.
And when you say, okay, it's time. Wow, your senses are so heightened, and it becomes such a wonderful, a much more wonderful experience. Because the opposite could be true too. Like if we don't eat, the body could turn on itself. If we don't have sex, that is not good either.
Right.
So we have to find it's this dance, it's this rhythm.
Right.
And they work together. Because as we pointed out very clearly, the diet is going to affect the libido. Whether it's going to overexcite it, where we need to have sex every day, or even every other day.
Right.
You know, and then we're, you know, for the men especially, you know, emitting every time.
Right.
That is, you know, just for the record, the Chinese say that 1 drop of semen is equivalent to 9 drops of blood. Nutritionally, 1 ejaculation is equivalent to, the nutritional equivalent to that is 5 meals. So if you're doing that, imagine you're doing that.
You mean in terms of the work body had to go through to put it together?
Not just that, but the actual energy that you just released from
Right.
your system.
Right.
So, you know, is very easy to see why we have such high incidence of prostate cancer.
Right.
We have
People are overworking their organ, right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
it's overexcited.
Yeah.
It's overworked.
It's
This
always
is a-
working. It's always working.
We
yeah.
we should be able to procreate well beyond 50, well beyond 70.
I mean,
even.
there are cases where like 80-year-old people have children, right? At least conceive
Exactly.
children. You know,
Exactly.
they may not live longer after that, but
And what does that tell you? That the libido is still active at that age too.
right.
So it's like, okay, do I want to have a overactive libido where it gets spent like a flame, like you know, like a match, and I light it and it's here today, gone tomorrow?
Mhm.
No, I want that flame to burn for a long time.
Or maybe just have a lighter whenever you need it. You can, you can like turn
Right.
up. Yeah.
But see, even in the lighter, you have that fluid there.
Right.
So I want to keep that fluid
Sure.
there.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to let that fluid go.
Right.
Burn it out.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But when we talk about libido, we have to address those things because it all works together. It works definitely with the diet, and it works, you know, in terms of understanding the cycle. And as you said very clearly, and I like what you said in terms of speeding up. So yes, people were over agitated, overstimulated, and then it doesn't help that our society too promotes that with just mass media and those kinds of things.
Don't get me started on that, because this to me is a very painful topic in the sense that I see it everywhere, and in that sense I feel like Neo in the Matrix, because I'm probably one of the very few people who see it. But you know what they have done with female clothing, because essentially, you know, men walk around and see nowadays, they essentially see a naked body nowadays. You know, I think the person who invented yoga pants should burn in hell, right? For everything I can, for all I care. I mean, because it leaves very little to imagination, right? Because our brains are not that sophisticated on the biological level to distinguish between, okay, oh well, this is actually covered. No, it sees a shape, right? Because the shapes are what's important, right? So women used to wear dresses, and you know, now on raw food, what I discovered, since you speak about balance, I noticed that this balance comes in various forms, and one of the forms is that it actually allows me to kind of see the truth. And by truth, I mean how things really are when they're not out of whack, because I start kind of reverting to that way, right? And what I'm noticing, I am now phenomenally attracted to women in dresses and with long hair. Like, it does not matter, you know, what race or, you know, whatever a woman is. It's just, you know, the recipe is really simple. You know, like no tattoos, just nothing. Because that's another thing I noticed. You know, I'm bringing up all these topics. People might hate me for it, but that, you know, this is just the truth. I'm just speaking the facts. Tattoos, they always look. Whenever I see a beautiful body, anybody is beautiful, right?
Yeah,
if you
it's
think
perfection.
right.
How can you add perfection?
Add,
You can't.
and it looks like skin disease. Like, especially from afar, they just look like blemishes, like some
right.
spots.
That's right.
And you know, there is this instant biological repulsion, right? It's you know, we have this repulsion from, like, go away from the sick person. Like, I don't want to get that, right? It's very natural. So I get that by looking at tattoos. I will look at a girl and thinking, okay, you know, she's pretty good, you know, has good hair, and then she'll turn around, has tattoo on her arm, and I'm thinking, okay, well, you know, that one is spoiled in the sense that the perfection is spoiled. Like, we're not saying they're bad people or anything. I'm just saying, you know, this is what happens, and you see a lot of these things when you start noticing. So another thing, just to finish up this sex topic. So I have this hypothesis, an idea that most people are so intoxicated, with toxins arriving through the food and other means, alcohol, whatever, especially alcohol actually, that because drunks like to have sex, right? So my hypothesis is that people have so many toxins in their bodies that their bodies use every possible way to dump those toxins, right? So sweat, urine, feces, and one of the ways is actually to ejaculate. That's why sperm has the smell, or I guess the taste of whatever you ate, right? If you eat a lot of garlic, it'll smell and taste like garlic, because garlic actually has a lot of things our body gets rid of, even though it's even if you eat raw garlic, like technically in mass quantities it's a toxin, right? And so the body tries to dump it, and my take is that when you start detoxifying, your body is actually finally able to take these things under control and realize, well, I don't need to really run the system so hard anymore because I have fewer toxins now, right? And another thing, so in Russian language we have this expression called urine went to the head, right? So that means sometimes people realized back in the day that a person could get sick in such a way where the kidneys don't work anymore, and so whatever was supposed to go in the urine actually goes in the blood, and a person can actually go insane because of that. Like, they can literally behave inadequately, they can just be like a crazy person. So I think a little bit of that happens even when it comes to the sex drive too, because you have a lot of toxins. It literally it distorts your psyche. It completely changes your hormonal balance. Like, these are not some things I'm talking about because I'm some kook making them up. I'm very much like, I take a lot of the scientific approach, and all of these things, but these are real things I'm talking about. I experienced a lot of them on myself. I speak from the personal experience, because but I think there's a lot of truth to what you said too. This is not the first time I hear about this idea that an aggressive type of environment will force an animal to procreate and speed up that cycle, because survive, right? And now if you can relax and say, okay, I have plenty of nutrients, everything is good, life is good, I am healthy, now I'm just going to look for the good person. That might take years, so I don't have to worry about it. So I mean, that's kind of in addition to what you said about this. Yeah. So shall we switch topics? Let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Let's talk about sport and exercise.
Okay.
So food is not everything there is to do to be healthy, right? So staying active is really important. So maybe you can share with us, what are your typical routines? I mean, what are your attitudes towards that? And
yes, well, over the last 15 years, I've been practicing. My main form of exercise I've been practicing is yoga.
Yoga?
I've done multiple forms. Right now, I'm mainly hatha yoga, but
which is the traditional, stretching type of routines.
The postures,
right?
More the static postures.
Not the Kundalini, which is a. Right.
I love Kundalini yoga, but that's not my main practice.
Right.
No.
It's advanced. Let's just say it's working with your breathing and hormonal system. Not for the faint of heart, because it's a pretty powerful thing.
And I mean, I growing up, I played a lot of sports, mainly basketball, but I've done like cross country, track and field, along with like baseball and things like that. But if I could say, like, doing yoga, it definitely is. Well, for me, it's provided a holistic approach of like really conditioning the body. So as you mentioned, the breathing, number one. I mean, obviously we're going to breathe just without thinking, but breathing is going to be in sync with the heart, and the heart is, everything is going to be in sync with your extremities and your joints, and that, it kind of allows your body, where in sport, a lot of time you're overstimulating or stimulating more of the extremities, maybe at the expense of the heart and some of the internal organ systems.
Right.
Where doing something more gentle can be just as beneficial, if not more beneficial, where it doesn't sort of damage the joint and the ligaments and the muscles, and it's more in harmony with the total body system.
It depends on where you start, right? Like you seem to have had a lot of the sports background already,
Yeah.
right? Some people
yes.
just at age 40 they try to get into it, whereas their whole life, even in high school, they were not that into athletics, right? So that's a completely different training regimen that you need for that person.
Yeah, obviously it depends on, each of us are different and unique, and what we've been doing. But for me, like, yoga has to be a part of anything that I do. So for example, if I want to run, or I want to lift weights, or do anything like that, or even play a sport, yoga is going to be a component of that. Because again, the stretching and the breathing and the postures, again, it really allows because the term that they use is core strength.
Right.
Really, core strength is it's really allowing the body get stronger without building up the muscle.
Right.
So you're really strengthening your ligaments and joints. And the ligaments and joints don't necessarily have to get bigger in order for so when the ligaments and the joints get stronger, then that allows for the body become to actually more efficient.
Well, right, and I would like to add something here. I completely agree, by the way, right? So a lot of people try to build muscle, right? And I think actually, to me, that's another one of these misconceptions along the lines of the sexual drive, right? Because I think what happens is somehow in these people's minds, it's not like they're insecure with themselves. There's probably a little bit of that, right? There's nothing wrong with building your body and functionality, but I mean, bodybuilding is in many ways like a beauty contest. It's not really a sport, right? If you think about it, like what those people do, they eat, they sleep, and they work out in a certain way. You have to pump a certain way, right? So it's like a sport. I mean, it's a beauty contest. It's not really a sport. Of course, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that one too, but that's fine. I can take a lot of flack by now, believe me. So, and basically when. But I'll let you continue for a bit, and then maybe I'll come back when you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, so the thing is like when you're able to like for me, be able to do a routine like that where now your muscles your muscles are the ideal size, where you don't necessarily you may look skinny to most people, but your body's in perfect rhythm and perfect the structure, because you want to have the flexibility, you want to have you want to be agile, you want to, because big muscles and things, you may have a good certain static kind of strength, but can you be able to move in a certain way where you can really get the most out of your muscle strength,
Right.
So it's really finding a nice, obviously, like people who do yoga or people who do martial arts, I find have more of a, when you do like martial arts or dance, those activities there's those people who commit their lives and who are known for that tend to have more of a balanced body structure in terms of muscle tone, joint or core power,
Right.
strength, and just overall. Now they're not prone to, or they don't get a pass from like getting injured and being unbalanced, because a lot of those people end up even turning to yoga,
Right.
because they need something that is more healing, especially as we get older.
Right.
So yoga has been my main exercise of choice. But as I mentioned, I mean, I've done like capoeira as well, the Brazilian martial art.
Right. So it's like a dance, a lot of rhythm, and
it's a martial arts dance, and I've done some other forms of dance. But at the end of the day, it's going to be yoga.
Right. So I mean, bottom line here is that you have to do something to stay active,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So just find, there is no perfect recipe. If you like things like yoga, try it out. If you like dancing, there are some dances that are very physically demanding.
Sure.
Like capoeira you can find, or even some Latin ballroom. They work a lot with your legs. Just have to be active. If you like running, try running. If you like working with weights, I mean, I for instance noticed that since switching to raw food, I don't really care much for the weights anymore. I just do everything with natural weight, right? Push-ups, pull-ups,
Yes.
squats, kind of, any kind of thing I can come up with the body.
You could just use your own body weight to stimulate the muscle, which
in
is
a natural way.
Yes.
Right, because
yes.
so one thing that's actually been pretty amazing to me that has happened. One thing actually that hasn't happened is that I have not gotten any injury since I started doing that, because I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's nearly impossible, because I'd rather fully trust my body in what muscles to work in which way to do a certain motion that's a natural motion to me, rather than trust some trainer or personal trainer in the gym who's going to tell me to bench press this way to avoid injury. Maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. But I guarantee you that if you keep isolating muscles only in a certain way, that's not natural, right? It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when you're going to get that injury, right? It happens to everyone, right? For me, I've been doing this for 2.5 years now. I've not even gotten like a pulled muscle or a sore ever. And I can get out of bed and just roll out. Like, we're sitting on a bench now. I can prop my legs and do 100 push-ups, not all at once, but like in a matter of maybe 5-10 minutes, I will do 100 total, right? And I'm talking like 10 minutes out of bed, right? No stretching, nothing. I will just do it. So, and what I wanted to comment on earlier about the tendons that you were mentioning, ligaments and tendons. A lot of people who build this muscle think, okay, I'm going to get stronger. What they don't realize, I've said this on the Russian internet. I'm going to say this again. Most of the people who do bodybuilding, the stuff that's in their bodies is actually garbage. This is not muscle. Like, this is what I call clogs in the lymphatic system, right? Because nothing drains. They eat a lot of protein. Protein goes in the blood. It's a total immune response. So body raises temperature, raises everything. It's an object from a foreign body floating in your blood. Like, this is an emergency in the body, right? So it does all these things. You can never get it out on time, right? So the body stuffs it everywhere it can. Now, the counter argument here is, okay, well, they get stronger. What do you say about that? Well, they actually get stronger because of the strength in the ligaments, right? So the ligaments and the bones is what limits our strength, not the muscles. Like, if you hear stories like a mother, you hear a story from somewhere where like an earthquake happens, something fell and like a child is under it. The mother will like flip 1,000, 2,000 pound rock like it's nothing.
Right.
Like, she obviously has the strength to do this. It's just in the regular situation, she's limited. So 2 things limiting: bones and ligaments, the brain, right? So you're already really strong. So like, you've probably met people, maybe you're like that, I don't know, like we should arm wrestle sometime or something, but like, you've met people who are really skinny but have phenomenal strength, like they can bench press a lot or something, and you're wondering, where's that coming from? That guy doesn't have visible muscle.
Right.
But to me, that explains why that happens,
Right.
Yeah. So, but I totally agree with the ligament and the bone part. And of course, bones nowadays are so weak because people are so deficient in calcium. Because calcium, not a lot of vitamin D, right? That's required for calcium intake. Not a lot of, well, actually a lot of things that take out calcium, right? A lot of milk, despite what commercials say that it has calcium, that calcium actually cannot be ingested by the body. But what happens, because it's such an acidic product, your body uses calcium from the bones to make a base, basically, to neutralize that acid. So it sucks calcium out of your bones. Ask any woman who's had like an osteoporosis or broke her hip at the age of 50 or something, because that's pretty much why that happens. But that's basically me agreeing with you on the strength part. So, and ever I switched to raw food, right, it became so obvious to me. It's like a mental thing. You go through a mental transition and you see all these people pumping iron to look bigger, and you realize, wow, these people are completely, first of all, they're delusional about the biology, the way the biology works, and second, they're delusional, psychologically. Why would you want bigger body to carry it around, right? If you worry for like protecting yourself or something, get a gun or learn some skills, like learn martial art. Like there are better ways to go about that, like more efficient ways than just building a bigger body. Doesn't get you anything, right? So, but it's just interesting. So we talked a little bit, and I think we should try to mention this in the video. About your loved ones, people who are around you, right? Oftentimes I wonder, because you mentioned you were married, and you said your first wife was not in balance, and she was not on the same diet. So
I don't want to say she was in balance with what she wanted to do. We just weren't in balance with each other.
Okay. Right. So you clarified that, right?
Okay.
I'm not gonna try to put words in your mouth.
Okay.
And but because we love people around us, right? People we care about, we love them, and we want to help them. And oftentimes when we try to offer that help, right? Maybe we don't know very well how to do it, or maybe it comes as a little awkward, or whatever other way. Maybe the person is not ready, right? So I know a lot of people in raw food try to proselytize on first stages, like try to push a lot. Oh, you have to try this, you have to do this, you have to do that. Because there is so much excitement. It's like a whole new world opened up to me, right? And you try to share it with your loved ones.
Sure.
But you notice oftentimes it backfires, right? People may get traumatized by that, and they say, okay, I will never want to try this because of the way you are offering. Maybe at least subconsciously, right? Maybe, hopefully consciously, they will not say that. But what's your experience? What did you find is a better way, to do that? Like, how do you do it in your family, maybe, or what's the situation?
It's tough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it or dress it up, but it can be difficult. It can be lonely. In fact, and actually, one of my blogs I talk about is this diet, is this lifestyle a lonely one, and it can be, but it also can be a welcome opportunity. Because again, I always say all the time, for me, I'm married to this. So
to the raw food lifestyle,
yes. So
to
this
this cause.
Definitely to death do us apart for me.
Right.
Now I know for most people they're not gonna take it to that level. But let's say you are that person.
Right.
And it's like, okay, how do I don't want to be antisocial. I don't want to be living in my corner of the world. I want to be, I want to be social. I want to have a family. I want to be in a relationship. I mean, these are all things that make life great. Not just feeling good because you eat good. That's just one part of life. So the thing is like, I know for me, I set out to, part of my value, in terms of my value and my mission, is to inspire. We're doing this video, people are listening, hopefully getting inspired to do it. Not because it's going to benefit you or I, just because it's going to benefit you. You're going to be healthy, you're going to have a higher quality of life, because on the flip side of that, we will at some point, if not already, or if not currently, are going to experience a loved one having to suffer and having to go through probably a premature death because of the lifestyle choices, because they're not living as they could be.
Right.
Now again, that's their life and that's their personal choice, so it's fine in that regard, but at the end of the day, we want the best for our loved ones.
Right.
We want the best for our children, and we want the best for our mate. So the thing is, it's like, it's always going to be work, and that's what really gives life its purpose. That's my purpose. A big part of my purpose is, and I know that now, and why I'm here. So the thing is, it's like, it's a welcome challenge. It's a welcome opportunity. So, we want to really, I think it just comes down to just our attitude and our approach.
Right.
Because, the last thing you want to do, because again, you start eating better, you're exercising, you're adding all of these great things to your life. But what it is now is giving you more energy and vitality to help others.
Right.
And that's what it's for.
Right. Right.
Because we're all trying to heal each and everybody one person at a time.
Right.
So just like you have an effect on your community, each person will then have another effect on that, and it grows, and that's what we want.
It's like a one candle lighting up other candles, and then we just have a more and more light everywhere.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's what, again, yes, it can be if we looked at it logically, but we're not dealing, this is not about logic.
No.
We're really trying to make, change. I was reading an article I had written when I was working as a raw food chef at a vegan restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Where they
you have that experience too. We'll have to talk about that.
Yes, but I was going through my files and I saw this article I had written about it, and because at that time there was no all raw food place here in DC.
Right.
So, and I said in the article that I didn't think that DC was ready for an all raw place.
Well, I'm sure you don't.
And it surprised me that I had written that. So now, obviously I've been in business for almost 6 years now, and obviously we're all raw, and we're in a great part of town, and I wouldn't say
it's getting much better even now.
Exactly.
The H Street, for those who don't know.
Exactly.
It's a cool place.
This is again, just reading that is like, wow, that was really my frame of reference at that point, at particular time.
The set of beliefs you had, right? Because that was probably a limiting
belief.
It
was a limiting belief,
right?
Because it was even limiting myself in terms of my profession and my career. Just to think like, oh, this couldn't survive on its own,
right?
So business is a relationship like any other.
Right.
And marriage is a business like any other.
Sure.
So when we have relationships and things, these are just, people connecting just in different ways and different levels. So in terms of relationships, again, you'd be surprised. And as we continue to do better, we all inherently want to do our best. I believe that. And that's the human spirit, that we want to live our best life. We want to live as long as possible,
right?
As healthy as we want to be, and and obviously this is eating this way has shown its benefits.
Right.
I personally say that the raw food diet is not even the best diet. It's the best diet for me.
And for me too, so far.
It may not be the best diet for you, but you have to find that out for yourself.
Yes.
You don't want anyone to tell you, say, oh, you need to eat this because this is the best. No.
Right.
It needs to be the best for you, because relationships are probably the biggest part of life.
Right. And also, when you say the best, you have to understand that you have to get knowledgeable about these things, because a lot of people try something and for one reason or another it doesn't work for them, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, this was not for me, or this is garbage or something. But there's so much into play. For instance, maybe somebody tries raw food diet on these what I call plastic vegetables, right? These GMO kind of chemically grown, pesticide ridden vegetables, right? Mm-hmm. That are sold everywhere. Mm-hmm. Of course it's not going to work, because first of all, the way they're grown from depleted soils, there are no nutrients in there, right? You're literally, so I'm not saying organic foods are perfect or anything like that. A lot of them are also these hydroponic, kind of spongy tasting things. Mm-hmm. But at least there are no chemicals there. Mm-hmm. And once in a while you find great stuff that actually tastes good, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you have your taste buds by now. You know a great product when you taste one. Sure. I'm getting to that point too. Like when I taste a great tomato, I'm gonna go buy them again, because I know what a great tomato is supposed to taste like. Mm-hmm. Because I don't eat salt, I don't eat all these things, mm-hmm. and I have clear sense of taste. Mm-hmm. But if a person tries that and said, okay, that didn't work for me, just beware of that. There are other things in the play, and you have to get knowledgeable about the thing you're about to try. Talk to people. Maybe if you're in DC, come to Khepra's place, talk to Khepra. A lot of people ask me questions on my channel. I try to help also people by answering, right, if as much as possible. Mm-hmm. But there are other factors. So it's not just, okay, it didn't work. Mm-hmm. If it works for other people and you clearly see progress or problems that they solved in their health, mm-hmm. and for some reason you can't make it work, don't give up just yet, because there might be something that's stopping you. Maybe a little lack of knowledge that you need to kind of work through, get past. So that's I would just like to mention that. Yeah. And so we'll see, maybe in whatever time we have, since we mentioned the improvements in the health, you know, what are some, maybe you can tell us some stories that you had, you know, because you said, I asked you earlier, you said you weren't, like, you don't have this magic story where, you know, you were terribly sick, right, and then you rose from near death to you know, feeling amazing.
Right.
And, you know, luckily you did not have that experience, right?
Right,
So, because
right.
if you can avoid that, that's really what we're all about here, right? So maybe you can say, and then I can share, you know, at least what happened to me.
Well, I think the message that I would like to share as far as that goes is that whatever brings you to wanting to do better is the best reason for you. So whether it was a near-death experience, whether it's just being just really just not feeling good, just whether it's emotionally, physically, however, despite that, the you know, as far as this diet and this lifestyle, you know, I say that you do better when you are doing better. What does that mean? That means, like, when you're healthy, when you're feeling good, you want to do better while you're feeling good. You don't want to wait till the crises and the, you know, and the near-death experience happens. Sometimes that is necessary, and that can be very inspiring. Oh, I lost over 100 pounds. Oh, I was in the hospital and the doctor said I had such and such to live, and look at me now. Those are great success stories, and I love those. However, to be truly successful at this, there has to be a passion and drive to just want to be healthy for just the sake of being healthy. And I think that once you are allowed to feel that desire within you, just to want to live your best life, to love yourself so much that you only want to eat the best food. You only want to practice the best habits, whether they be exercise, how
Sexual
you have
habits,
sex,
yes.
Your spiritual practice. All of these things are in sync with living your best life. And so you know, there are because the thing is, for me, it's fortunately and unfortunate that you know, people do come to me when usually the situation becomes desperate.
Right.
And a lot of times, because the way health works is that, you know, there's a relationship between sensitivity and health. When you become more sensitive, you become more healthy. You know,
Sensitive in which sense?
in every sense. So, for example,
Smell, taste.
smell, taste, or let's say, for example, somebody over maybe a couple feet from us was smoking,
Right.
and so
We would stop the video and move.
right.
We would.
So what happens is that your tolerance is not as high, and that's a good thing because your sensitivity is so much greater. So the thing is like, now imagine when somebody is dealing with, like, you know, overweight, high blood pressure, chronic pain.
Just this whole baggage in one time, right?
Their tolerance level has reached its breaking point. In order for that to happen, you have become so desensitized and therefore so unhealthy. So now you have to try to revert not just back to the mean, but you want to get to a place where you are super sensitive. So the thing is like, that can be an arduous task, and a lot of times, most people don't succeed. However, the thing that I try to tell people to inspire them is to do better when they are better. You know, so that's what I have to say about that.
Right. Yeah, and what I would like to add is just, you know, a little bit from my experience. What I noticed works for delivering information more efficiently is actually not proselytizing to people and not just trying to be pushy, right? It's okay if you know somebody likes books, give them a book, you know, like Pottinger's Cats we mentioned earlier, or I mean, that book to a right person, that'll blow their mind. I mean, that'll change their life.
Sure.
It had a shaking impact on me, right? I'm now at a point where I'm going through original papers, because the book is like a summary of the original scientific works. I'm going through the original works because that's how interested I got in this, right? And so give books, that's fine, you know, talk to people, that's really important. But another thing is, like you said you want to inspire. So the way I look at it, it's the same thing, we're saying the same thing, but the way I look at it is I'm trying to lead life like a masterpiece life, not in the sense of some term of success, right, as deemed by society, but a masterpiece. So if I had to look back, or if somebody looked after me, right, and said, wow, you know, this man really lived his life according to the laws of nature, you know, in balance with how he was supposed to be in this place, like an optimal life. Of course, you know, we're talking, it's, you know, it's possible to reach for that, but, you know, it's hard to achieve that, right? But that's what I mean. So it's inspire in that sense, right? So, and if you try to focus on yourself and just focus on yourself doing better, you will notice that people around you will start getting affected a lot more than if you just kept trying to give information to them and just work on them. So you have to work on yourself. And notice if you burn that fire within yourself, you will light a lot more people around you by that. Because somehow, and it's a weird, interesting thing, but people tend to pick up these kind of clues or pick up these bits in most unexpected times. Like in the time that you thought, okay, I'm going to talk to, you know, my wife or whoever, and I'm going to deliver this information and she will get it and she will, you know, stop doing whatever or start doing whatever. It almost never works that way. You know, when I talk to people, people will tell me, you know, it was that thing that you said at that moment that really kind of changed my thinking about something. And, you know, the moment they're describing would be something I would have never thought of. To me, it would, you know, it was just a trivial moment, but for some reason it just clicked for them at that time, right? So now I just focus on, you know, doing the best I can while, you know, I have a YouTube channel, you know, we talk to Khepra, just trying to still, you know, maybe blog is in the works, I don't know about that, but, you know, so things like that. There are ways of reaching other people, but you still have to do your own thing. I'm gonna do me in that sense, right? And then other people will learn around. So, but we're essentially saying the same thing.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that one of the things that comes in mind as you were talking, you know, anybody who's a alcoholic and they go through the 12-step program, they say the key to their success of not drinking alcohol, they can do all the things that they learn, but it's the last strategy is, and if they don't do this, they will probably revert back to alcohol, is helping someone else.
So they have to help someone else.
Well, it's their choice, but if they want to ensure their success is going to rely on the fact if they make it a part of their mission to help others with the same issues that they had. So it demonstrates that my success, your success, anybody's success, especially, you know, with something that is so different than what most people are doing, it is our mission, it is our purpose to inspire, and not in a, like what you said, in a pushy sort of way. It's like, look, I do this because of this, and, you know, I feel great, and you become the living example and the living testimony. And when you're able to do that, then people will come.
Right.
You know, people will be open, because we, like I said, it goes back to, you know, what I said. We all want to live our best. We all want to do our best. So even if it's for, because, you know, a lot of my programs and things, I mean, you know, in terms of my business, things are driven around, again, I know, I mean, we get, you know, for me to survive as a business, I got to basically touch every part of every community.
Right.
So I have to carry, like, so I know if I had to rely on everybody becoming a raw foodist, I would go out of business very quickly.
Right.
But everybody
At least for now.
Right.
Maybe
but,
later.
But most people, no matter what their lifestyle is, they may want to do a juice cleanse.
Right.
Male or female.
Right.
Even though it's predominantly females, but male or female, they want to do a juice cleanse.
So women do that more based on your experience,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
So a lot of it is probably from fashion magazines and whatever, right? A bit of fads and
I give them a little more. I give females a little more credit than that. I think that's part of it for sure. But I think that women are just at a slightly higher vibration than men in terms of their health.
On average, in our society.
In our society,
right.
Yes.
We're not talking from nature, we're talking just that.
I think because, women are the deliverers of babies, and not that every woman wants to or is going to have a baby, but because their physicality, I feel, is supersedes somewhat men because of that and maybe some other things.
Right.
Like they're just more physical beings.
Maybe they think about this a little more. At least they think of the babies and I have to.
Yes.
I cannot completely butcher this, right?
Yes.
And whereas men.
And they're certainly way more concerned about their health than men are.
Right.
For men, it's like we really have to be in some serious pain, and then most men don't want to. We feel like we men like to take pride in what we know. And
right.
we don't like to admit that we don't know. Right. And that's just a male pride thing.
It's the ego, right? It's the ego.
And that's okay. That's what makes us men.
I say I don't know something every day, every single day.
Right.
I mean, if you know everything, I mean, why live? Just you're done, just check out, so okay.
Sure. But definitely, from a business perspective, I have to appeal to most parts of society, or else I'll be
right.
So the thing is, like, even with the raw food, it's like, you can come and do a raw food diet for a week or a month, and people can commit to that. They may not want, they're certainly not going to, most people are not necessarily going to commit to a lifetime, but they can commit to a month or maybe a summer or something like that.
Try it, and you never know.
Exactly.
Because when you start seeing the effects, you may just decide, I'm not doing that other thing ever again.
Exactly. Because a popular thing that I challenge people, especially maybe towards the beginning of the year, people have New Year's resolutions, is to do 100 days. Commit to 100 days.
Or even a month. I think a month is a great start too, right?
Oh yeah.
Because after a month,
it's all good. But
yes.
100 days is 100 days is psychological. It encompasses a season, a full season.
And it's a nice round number.
It's a nice round number.
Triple digit.
Right. And a year is even better than that, because now you've gone through a complete season, like where the Earth goes around the sun.
Well, if you do a year, like my brother and I joke, if you do a year, and then if you do a year of raw food, you start exercising at the same time, after a year, you're out of society. The Matrix has lost you. You're out. Out you go. At least in that way. That'll be just the beginning, but you're out.
And that can even happen with 100 days as well.
Yep. It can. It truly can.
Because really the goal is like, well, if you do 100 days, what's 101? What's 110? What's 200? That's really the goal. It's not just to say, 100 days, now I can go. And no, because then it's like you've gotten rid of your, hopefully those cravings and things have gone away for certain other foods, and you certainly have a good feeling. It's like, well, I could just continue. This could be my life.
Right. No, that's certainly true.
So
yeah, and that's how I did my transitions, at least initially, to vegetarianism. I tried it for 30 days, but I woke up on the day 40 realizing that it has been 30 days. In other words, I liked it enough that I didn't even notice when it was over.
Forgot.
Right, and then it was no switching back. I mean, I liked it a lot.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So I think we'll leave you on this note. Hopefully it was inspiring, a little positive. I had a good conversation. I learned a lot. I really like that stuff about the speeding up and slowing down. There's a lot to think about there, and so hopefully we gave you some information, food for thought. And even though I'm moving away in some weeks, but I'll
believe that.
Right.
You're going to be missed.
I'll try to go south where there is more sun. That's not my main motivation, but it'll be part of my new experiment to see how raw food feels in a place where there is more sun even during the winter.
Oh, okay.
So,
Was there one or two?
but
Awesome, man. I'm jealous. Jealous.
well, we'll see. I'll probably be back. Maybe if you're ever in Texas,
Okay.
you can swing by, and
Sure,
we'll do another video. But I'm sure I'll be back, and hopefully we'll do several more of these. So thanks for watching. Khepra has his own YouTube channel. We'll link to it in the description. So, and whatever Facebook page or whatever other media you use,
Sure,
so
sure.
he'll give us all. We'll link up in the description.
Okay.
So
Appreciate it.
thanks for watching. See you again.